This SNP government is leaving councils the length and breadth of Scotland in a dire position. Despite what Nicola Sturgeon claims, independent analysis shows that the budgets councils have control over are being cut by £304 million in real terms. That means devastating consequences for vital services. So will the First Minister finally admit that she is cutting local government budgets?
First Minister.
This government is increasing local government budgets. The resources available to local government in terms of next year's budget, of course, if Parliament passes next year's budget, the increase will be £570 million. Of course, inflation is sky high right now. That's not a result of policies of this government, and of course that is affecting the budget of this government as well. So absolutely it is the case that local government is struggling with these financial constraints, as all parts of the public sector, and indeed, as Anas Sarwar has just said, households are struggling as well. That is why it is important that we continue to support local government as much as we can. Obviously, the budgetary process is still underway and will conclude following the February recess of Parliament, and we will continue to discuss with COSLA ways that we can help them mitigate the difficult situation they find themselves in. Of course, last week I invited Anas Sarwar to point to other parts of the draft budget that he thought we could take resources from if he wants us to give more money to local government. He may have sent those to my office, I don't know, in which case I will look at those, but I suspect he hasn't come up with any reasonable or realistic or credible proposals to do that.
Anas Sarwar.
First Minister knows we published a document showing £3 billion of waste under this SNP government. That would be a good place to start. But the First Minister wants to deny reality. The Fraser of Allender, the IFS, Spice, Scotland's councils, including our own, all saying there is a real terms cut to local government budgets, but a truth that this First Minister is not willing to accept. And there is no way for councils to balance the books without further destroying local services. All of Scotland's 32 councils are united in their opposition to this government's cuts. This is what a presentation to council leaders said last week. Cuts have already fallen disproportionately on council services, libraries, culture and leisure, sports facilities, youth work, waste, roads, parks. These are cuts that have already happened in previous years, and the presentation concludes that the government's plans are, and I quote, increasingly unrealistic, not sustainable, risk non-delivery of other statutory duties, and puts the financial viability of local government at risk. Councillors of every political party, including her own, are angry and warning her of the dire consequences. But Nicola Sturgeon's not listening. As usual, she is right and everyone else is wrong. Why can't the First Minister see the damage her decisions are making to our communities?
First Minister.
Well, firstly, I think Anas Sarwar demonstrated the lack of any credible proposals coming from Labour in the first part of that question. Secondly, he mentioned the IFS. It's important to underline that IFS analysis confirms that council funding has increased since 2018-19. It's gone up since 2013-14, it's gone up by £2.2 billion. That's 22.9% higher in cash terms. But of course, it is the case that inflation is high. So when Anas Sarwar shouts at me from a sedentary position, what about real terms? Yes, inflation is high right now, and that is affecting all parts of the public sector. And of course, that is down to decisions and economic mismanagement of the Conservatives at Westminster. But we come back to the central point, presiding officer. All of us can accept that these are really difficult times for local councils, and we will continue to work with local councils to support them as much as we can. But the draft budget that is before Parliament right now has all of the resources at our disposal, including the revenue from asking those who earn the most to pay a bit more in tax. All of that revenue is allocated within that draft budget. So anybody who says, and I understand why they would make this argument, that we should give more money to local government, has a duty and a responsibility to point in that draft budget to the lines where they think that money should come from. Is it the NHS? Is it the police budget? These are legitimate debates. Is it social security? These are legitimate debates. But if you want to be credible in these debates, you can't only argue one side of it. You have to do both of the bits. That's what governing is all about.
Anas Sarwar.
We can only have an honest debate if we get an honest answer from the First Minister. This is a real terms cut to local government budgets. and the First Minister is out of touch with reality. Let's look at what's on the table. Let's look at what's on the table and the options councils are being forced to consider. Aberdeen, outsourcing all social work and children's services. Falkirk, selling off over 100 council buildings, including swimming pools and theatres. Glasgow, slashing care placements for children, which officials warn will compromise children's safety and increase the risk of abuse and neglect. Enough is enough. Get off your backs and speak out against this, First Minister, because across the country we are facing a future where children's music lessons are cut, libraries are closed and where bins will only be collected once a month. And the blame for all of this lies with Nicola Sturgeon and her government, because wherever you look, this government is losing its grip. People used to say the First Minister was competent. Now they're saying she's out of control. And that's just people in her own political party. After 15 years of this SNP government, local government in crisis, teachers on strike, the NHS on its knees, so will she finally admit that this is an SNP budget for cuts, for closures and for strikes?
First Minister.
Well, no matter how much Anas Sarwar raises his voice in shouts, it doesn't cover up the fact that he has not brought forward a single proposal within a budget that is fully allocated for putting a single extra penny into local government budgets. That's why he shouts, because there is absolutely zero substance in anything he's saying. All sound and fury and no substance is a good summary of Anas Sarwar. But let me take some of the points. Anas Sarwar is talking about real terms. The £570 million increase that I have spoken about, that is actually a real terms increase of £160.6 million, 1.3%. Secondly, in terms of the proposals that councils are looking at this time every year, councils look at a range of proposals. I've seen proposals from, I think, Glasgow City Council this morning, and the point is made these are options that no decisions have been taken. I remember a few years ago claims at this time of year that there were going to be 15,000 job cuts across local government. Since then, jobs have actually increased by 19,000. So, yes, these are difficult times for local government, but if you want to propose more money for local government within a draft budget that is fully allocated, then to have any credibility, you also have to say where that resource should come from. And in the absence of Anas Sarwar being clear about that, I can only assume that he wants us to take money from the National Health Service or from police budgets and give it to local government or social security. Perhaps it's the Scottish Child Payment. So if Anas Sarwar wants to be taken seriously, he really has to bring some substance to what is a very difficult debate and a very difficult situation for local councils across the country.